Hi, this is Aaron at ThinkBotLabs.com and welcome back to our second tutorial in Halloween bowling. In this tutorial we'll be working on scoring and adding those textures to the bowling lane, the ball, and the rails. So to get started on scoring, let's start off with the UI. So let's create UI text. Now I like to swap out, go to 2D mode and then focus on the text. It's much easier to work this way. First, let's rename Canvas to Game UI, and then we'll go to our text and we'll rename it to Score. We also want our score to be in the upper left hand corner no matter what our screen size is. So this will help adjust that. Let's go ahead and grab our text. You can see it's really faint in our game view. So let's change the color of that. Let's change it to red. Kind of a blood red. Let's move it up and move it over. I'm also going to switch from free aspect over to 16:9. That's your typical 1080p view. This will help us adjust that. So I'm going to put that right up in the corner. Okay, so in our text, we have a text area. Let's go ahead and set that to score. This will be overwritten. This is just more of a placeholder for now. For a font, I found a font that I liked earlier at defont.com. It's called Something Strange. Go ahead and download it. And then let's create a new folder. I just like to keep things organized. And go ahead and drag that font into that folder. Okay, so now we have the Something Strange font. Go back to the score text, and we can either drag and drop it or use the selector to select it. Okay, see the score is updated. I'm going to make the font style bold. I'm going to set this at 23 pixels. Make sure it's on left adjusted, and we're going to put it in the center of the box. Okay, we're also going to do best fit, and it's pretty good. Let's add a couple more components. Let's add outline. That gives it a little pop there. And then let's also give it a shadow. There you go. So now it really raises out. Increase the shadow a little bit. It's pretty good. What's the wrong one? 23 is as big as I can get. Okay, now let's go ahead and minimize all this. Let's go back to our scripts and let's create a new script, C# called Score. Let's go ahead and open that up. Alright. So let's format this. Control A, K, F. The first thing we need to add is the using Unity engine .ui. Let's delete all this. Okay, we're going to need a score that we're actually going to keep track of. So public int score 0 to start out with, and then public text, which is what our game UI score is. It's a text object. Just call that text. Let's create a method to add score. Our score is an integer, so let's call it an amount. So our score is going to be less equal to amount. Okay. And also on start, let's go ahead and set score to 0 if it's not already. And then let's create a method to update the display for our text. So our text equals score. Let's concatenate this to score. Looks good. Then in our add, let's go ahead and call that update display. That means every time that we're adding value to our score, we're going to update the scores text. Looks good. Let's go ahead and save that off. Yeah, so there's some inconsistencies in line endings. So what you have to do there, this happens every once in a while. Go back into Visual Studio's File, Advanced Save As, and the line endings, change it to Windows. Okay? And then save that. Go back in here and that error should go away. Okay. Go back to our score and drag the score script onto it. And the text is actually going to be the score item. Good. Now let's set up our bowling pin scoring. And swap back to 3D, and we can focus back on the pins. For our pins, we need to do two things. We need to see if it was hit and see if it was knocked over. Let's go ahead and delete all the pins except for one. We'll be creating a prefab, so we only have to change stuff on one game object. Just delete all these. And then from our single pin, let's go ahead and create another 3D object, cylinder, as a child object. Go ahead and rename this to trigger. On this trigger, we can remove the mesh render and the cylinder mesh filter. And then select is trigger. We'll be using the outside cylinder to see if the transform has changed. Then we'll be using the inside cylinder to see if its collider has been triggered. We'll do this because if we mark the main cylinder as triggered, the ball will simply pass through its collider. Now let's create a new script called bowling pins and attach it to our trigger. Okay, grab it, attach it to our trigger. It should be on there. Alright, let's open up that script. Let's delete everything in here to start off with. Alright, so what do we need for our bowling pins? We need to find its transform. So public transform pin, just give it a name. We need to determine the threshold on what we're considering the pin knocked over, because the pins can get hit, but we don't want to actually score any points until said pin is knocked over. So we need a public float, and we'll call this threshold. And we'll set it to 0.6. We'll set this to public so we can play with it in the editor versus coming back to the script. Each of our pins in bowling, each of your pins is worth 1 point. If you make 10 points, in a single hit, that's a strike. So say public int point is equal to 1. And we'll also be referencing our score to add points to. So public score. I think that's everything that we'll need. So for the score, let's call it first. So void awake, say score equals game object dot find. Let's do find object with tag. And we'll go back and tag that game object text with the tag of score dot get component score. Let's go ahead and tag that real quick. Save this off, go back to our scene, click on score, click on tag, add tag, plus, and score. Okay. Make sure we tag this with score. Okay, let's go back to our script. For the collider, let's see if it fell first. So void, let's call this check if fell. Move my mouse so you can see. We're not returning anything, we're just seeing if it actually did fall. Let's throw a try catch statement in here, just in case one of our pins with the attached script go into the dead zone. We don't get all kinds of errors about it not able to find the object anymore. So try catch. Okay. So in our try statement, we're going to say if our pin, which is our transform, dot up dot y is less than our threshold, we're going to add some points. Score dot add point. And then we need to disable our collider, because this game object, the bowling pin, can continue rotating and smacking into other stuff, thus potentially adding unnecessary points. So game object dot get component collider dot enabled equals false. Looks better. Okay, and in our catch, let's just debug out a line. Debug.log. Looks like the pin went into the dead zone. Not a big deal, but your console will gripe at you. And what else do we need? We need to set up the trigger. So void on trigger enter collider other, and all we need to do is call the check if fell. If I could type tonight. That looks good. So we have our transform, so we're getting our rotation on, our threshold, which which is our rotational axis, our points, and we're calling our score that we created earlier to add and update the display. Save that. Go ahead and go back to Unity. Okay, let's go to our pin and then our trigger. And we can see that the script is looking for a pin transform. So grab the main pin and put it in that transform. And the score, let's grab the score from the game UI and put it in there. Okay, let's create another folder called Prefabs. And then drag this pin into that folder, which will make it a prefab. We'll use this prefab later when we work on spawning our pins. Okay, so let's go to our pin. Let's go ahead and duplicate it and set up 10 pins. It's Control D. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And then one more. Alright, that should give us 10 pins. 4, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Alright, let's play it and see how it looks. So, play. Move left, right. Alright, we knocked them all over and our score went up to 10. Okay, now let's play with some materials. Okay, let's create a new folder. Call it art. I don't really have a good name for it. I found a couple textures online that I liked for our wood floors and the pumpkin itself. So I'm just going to grab those, put them in here, into the art folder. Let's start off with the pumpkin. So the easiest way to do this is just grab our pumpkin texture, drag it and drop it right on there. And what this does when you drag and drop it on there, it automatically creates a material for us. So we can change the material type. By default it goes to standard. We go down to unlit and then texture, and it's really bright. We'll play with some of the values. Okay, I kind of like that smoothness. Let's bring it down a little bit. Pumpkins aren't really that shiny. Okay. Let's go ahead and create on our pumpkin, because pumpkins aren't just round. Let's go to our pumpkin. Let's create another 3D object called a cube. Shrink this down, and we're going to make this dim. Now for your polished game, you'll probably find a model of a pumpkin that looks a lot better. But for now, this is just a demonstration. And we'll probably find one later too. Okay. Let's just create a new material. That's right click, create, go down to material, and we'll call it stem. And we'll go to its color, find a nice little green color. That's pretty good. And grab the material and put it on the stem. which is going to be funny because now when we roll the pumpkin, we're not rolling just a sphere. We're rolling a sphere with this little knot. So let's play that real quick and have a look. Okay, shoot it off. Boing, boing. It's funny. We'll have to give it a little bit more speed to get it down there, but it still did the trick. Okay. And let's do our wood. Let's go to the first rail, drop that on there. Second rail, drop that on there. And let's drop this on the bottom board. Yeah, that looks pretty good. It's coming along. I think I'll actually find some models for the bowling pins though. Okay, I'll hunt for those before the next tutorial. But for now, we're looking pretty good. We have our scoring system set up. We're able to play the game and shoot the pumpkin down the lane, hit our pins, and update our score. Perfect. We also need to add some logic in there to say that if we knock down 10, we have a strike. In our next video, we'll also be looking at setting up spawning. We want to be able to respawn our pumpkin and respawn our pins. In typical bowling, you get 2 tries to knock down all the pins.